Welcome to the Nutritious and Delicious podcast with me, Bethany. Our mission is to support you as a busy parent with your nutrition and well-being. After all, at Nutritious and Delicious, we believe a healthy family starts with a healthy parent. So I'm super excited. I have Stephen here with me today. Stephen is a fitness coach at Stumos Fitness. He specializes in helping men and women over 40 ditch the aches and the pains so they can live a stronger and more confident life. He uses these principles of strength training to help people get out of pain and back to living a high quality of life. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you very much for having me, Bethany.
Yeah, I'm excited because today we are actually talking about people in terms of their thoughts. So the topic today we have is elevate your year with awareness around your thoughts. And I actually want your thoughts on all of this as well, because I think in the new year here, there's a lot of people that are struggling with their weight, and also kind of getting back into the gym. So I'd love for you to actually give us a little bit of how you started in this space.
Sure, yeah. I've always been an active individual, but where a lot of my downfalls came is that I dealt with a lot of pain and a lot of injuries that, for lack of a better word, like messed with my head in a lot of ways psychologically. And for having all of this happen young, I was like, geez, I'm only like in my teenage years, early 20s, and I'm already feeling like this. How am I going to feel when I'm 50, 60, 70, so on? And so I really did my research on things about, how, like the mechanisms behind pain. And unfortunately, I got a lot of bad advice from a lot of healthcare professionals
Yeah.
that wasn't really helping me, and paying a lot of money for different treatments from chiros, physios, doctors, things like that. And unfortunately, a lot of the treatments were band-aid solutions at the end of the day, where they were kind of treating the pain, but not why it was there in the first
Right.
place. So that's where I really dug a lot deeper into what pain is and how we can not just get rid of it now, but prevent it from coming back in the future. And so I really started treating myself. I was kind of my own first client, and then really just got into the space of helping other people with their pain, with their issues. And I've seen a lot of different issues over the years that I've been in this industry. It's been almost 10 years now, working out of commercial gyms and then eventually my own business. But yeah, just seeing a lot of different things like that in myself led me on this path in the first place.
That's wonderful. In terms of like, I find that a lot with a lot of people, like they use themselves as like their first kind of testimony, their first client, because it comes from a place of, I think, if you can really help yourself first, you can help others, right? And that's amazing. So, kind of looking at that, like what sort of got you into dealing with the pain part and helping people? Like, when you said you had, I guess, like bad advice, like what kind of have you learned about yourself to help other people?
So for me, starting with the bad advice, it was mostly just to avoid a lot of things. Hey, don't do this, don't do that. So it was all this negative um, information that was coming into me. So then you become afraid to even go bend down to tie your shoes, or to pick up something heavy, because they say, hey, don't do it, your back might break, or something like that. So you're getting all kinds of all this negative feedback, and then it made me not want other people to have to go through the same experience that I did. And that's where my own inspiration for that came. And it's just, I want to be a movement optimist where I want people to feel comfortable doing their activities of daily living, not just stuff in the gym or like sports or other like higher level activities, but just being able to go about your day-to-day life and not worry about hurting yourself or being in pain or relying on Tylenol every day or heating pads or things like that.
Yeah.
Just getting people in the right headspace to just be like, hey, now I can just live my life without worry, without anxiety, because I dealt with a lot of it. So I don't want people to have to deal with what I did.
Do you find do you find people usually work out and they on injuries and they're not really aware of what they're doing by working out on like previous injuries before? Like I'm sure you see that, and what's nice about what you do is you almost have like a holistic approach of helping people to be able to kind of avoid that pain before they get there. And that's sort of like what I do with the nutrition aspect, is helping people before they get to such a dire position of like now they do need sort of a medical intervention, and surgeries and things like that. within your industry, what have you seen in the last several years? Like when you kind of have clients come to you, like what are you usually talking to them about?
Unfortunately, it's trying to undo a lot of misinformation that they've heard
Yeah.
over the years. Because people will come to me, I say, hey, for lower back pain, let's do deadlifts, let's get your hips strong, let's get your spine strong. And they're like, oh no, I heard deadlifts are bad for my back, I can't do those. I was told not to do those. And it's very frustrating in the beginning because the thing that will help them get out of pain is the thing they were told not to do. So a
Right.
lot of those first conversations are trying to, again, you don't want to just say, oh, that's wrong, and do all. You have to
Yeah.
kind of gain some trust with people and be like, okay, let's break down why this is too, because the body is very adaptable to what you put in front of it. So I always describe it to people this way: um, if we go for runs, right, we get better at running. The body adapts in multiple different ways, from a cardiovascular perspective to a strength perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and over time you get better and better at running. The same thing can happen with the spine, say, for example, in lower back pain. If we avoid all spinal loading, all spinal movement, or training or exercise in there, we can't expect the spine to be very strong because it has
Right.
nothing to adapt to. So we tend to be overprotective of a lot of things, which leads us to further disuse, which then leads us to further potential for pain and injury in the long run. So it really does start with education
Yeah.
from the very beginning with clients. And yeah, unfortunately, trying to undo a lot of messaging.
That's what I was going to say, is it comes across as I think you need to sort of re-educate the client and gain that trust in them that like you're not going to run them down this path of getting injured again or hurting. And like you said, that can build the anxiety, right? Of, I don't want to do that because I don't want to have a worse situation. I haven't been able to like move or, use this muscle very well. And I think a lot of people, like you said, they guard that. So they're not really able to properly use it. Do you find that you have to sort of talk to people in terms of their mindset as well as the education part? Because I know I have that in my business as well. Is um, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, yes, but I find a lot of people also struggle with their own head tapes and the thoughts, and like that's what we're talking about today, the thoughts and awareness around like what you're teaching, because that is a big thing I find that people trip themselves up on a daily basis.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's about wrapping your head around the fact that your body is fully capable of healing, of recovering, of adapting, getting stronger. And most people don't believe that about themselves. Most people think that their bodies are frail, or their spine is weak, or their knees are weak, and that's why they're afraid to do things. And there's all kinds of messaging, especially about people that are aging, right? I deal with a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. My
Mhm.
oldest client right now is in his 80s.
Oh, wow.
But a lot of people believe that it's like, well, after 30, things start to go downhill. Muscle strength is going to go down, bone density
Yeah.
is going to go down, and inevitably things are going to get worse. And I'm going to be in pain inevitably,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily a great mindset to have, but it is the prevailing belief in a lot of people. So yeah, it's trying to get them to understand that, hey, it doesn't matter how old you are. And I usually use my older clients as examples, like, hey, look what
Right.
these people are able to do. These people are not in pain because they've kept moving, because they've kept getting stronger, and just really just reinforcing that over and over again to change people's mindset to understand that you can be strong. It's not usually age that's the problem, it's how much or how little you're moving. That's going to dictate how you feel, the mindset about yourself, and how little pain you'll be in.
That's very interesting because it just made me have a picture of basically somebody just standing there like with a shovel and being like, just bury me here right now. Like this is like they've already like kind of made their stance that like, oh, I'm
Yep.
old, like this isn't gonna happen for me. Maybe for other people. And I hear that as well. And that's like it's tapes. And like you said, there's that if you believe something, it's and you have that strong conviction that, oh, now I'm past sort of that 40 mark, like now it's all downhill from here. It's like that's what I kind of hear. And or I get a lot of this is like after I have children. So it's like, oh, after you have children, like you can't get back to your old weight. And there's so many people I know that have and or even are in better shape after having children. And I think it's a society thing at one point, but also there's like a couple of things where you're taking on maybe the beliefs around you, or like my family has these chronic issues, so therefore I'm going to get it. And I see this with things like chronic illnesses, like like high blood pressure, diabetes, all that kind of stuff. You don't have to go down that path like everybody else. Like these are things that we can prevent with, you said, like the holistic aspect. I would imagine also, do you have people that struggle more so? I know with mobility, but like their weight will slow them down. So like when their weight is heavier, they're going to have these other tapes of like, well, I just never have been able to lose the weight, and therefore they kind of give that sort of excuse, I guess, not to work out. And I guess with I've heard a few people say like, oh, I'm so heavy that like my knees, I can't run or anything like that. And you probably hear that too because it's an impact, and their doctor said like if you go running, you're gonna like hurt your knees and do all these things. How do you sort of navigate somebody that comes to you that is, a heavier set, and they're struggling sort of with their weight, and you're trying to get them into sort of this like baby step method of trying to work out? How do you usually navigate that with somebody?
It's a great question, and it's a tricky one. In all honesty, it's remember how I talked about all kinds of negative messaging that we receive. I try to focus on what people can do. So you really need to break things down and be able to regress a lot of movements. So, like, say instead of running, maybe you get them on an elliptical. Maybe they're just walking on a treadmill. Maybe they're doing just body weight exercises or assisted ones using machines. Like, whatever options can start as what I like to call the entry point of exercise. And that could be from a pain perspective. It could just be like, hey, getting them moving because they might be a little bit overweight and unable to do certain things. So you find out what they can do. And that happens through assessment. And a lot of times just testing out some things that maybe they enjoy more than others too, because you do have to take into that account as well, because you want people to continue and be consistent with exercise. You do have to find things that they can do and things that they like ideally, and put together.
Okay. What do you think in terms of like these myth busting things? Because I hear this a lot through people as well, where they say like, oh, you have to work out a certain amount of times a week. Like kind of when you speak to clients and you say, like, hey, let's get you into sort of like a training regimen, I guess, for you. And like you said, you start them sort of on like a treadmill, something body weight exercises. Um, where do you sort of have to bust those myths of like, oh, you need to be working at X amount of time in a day, the intensity? Like, how do you sort of start clients with those baby steps of like the self-belief that they can kind of get up to that point?
It's really all about what I like to call habit stacking. So you start with something that's like super easy. I always, whenever I'm coming up with a plan for somebody, it's always a collaborative approach. So it's like, hey, this is what we're going to try to do this week. It might just be, hey, we're going to work out one time for 30 minutes. If we do that, like, how I ask them, how confident are you that you're going to be able to do this? If it's not a 9 or a 10, then I'm revising that plan. I want them to feel like super successful early on. Start with that one, and then if they feel, hey, that was easy, cool, let's add this. And you make it according to the person's schedule. But I think we often get too caught up in what I like to call majoring in the minors. We're so worried about trying to be optimal with things. Oh, how many times do I have to work out? Sets of each muscle group do I have to do? Like, what's the optimal nutrition plan? Optimal this, optimal that. But we're not even consistent with anything yet. So you could have the best plan in the world, but if you're not able to sustainably follow it, it doesn't really have much value. So it's more so about finding what you can do consistently and then just stacking and adding on little by little, but not jumping the gun before you've mastered the previous level. So it might just be something as simple as one 30-minute workout, or hey, I'm going to go for a walk 2 times this week for 15 minutes. It could be as basic as that, but just to get the ball rolling, build some momentum and some confidence in themselves that they can do it. And then you continue to add complexity and add more based on their goals, of course, too.
Well, the fact that we are in the new year, I would ask you, because this is like the big time of year where everyone makes like the New Year's resolutions, and I'm going to get to the gym, I'm going to eat like super clean. And I think people, like you said, they're kind of starting in the small things, and they're kind of making it like big right away. And I find a lot of people are not able to meet those goals and those expectations for themselves, and they kind of set themselves up for failure, unfortunately. Having worked in the diet industry for a number of years, I saw a huge influx of people come in and come out of it about March, and then we're back in sort of the end of the year even bigger. And it was really disappointing to see because it wasn't working for people, right? What would be some advice for people going into sort of that feeling of like, I need to start working out like 100% in like gun ho? What would be some advice for people that you see in terms of like they do have an injury, maybe they are quite overweight, and that you don't want to get them into something that's going to like harm them? What would be some sort of advice going into the new year of like how to sort of start and realistic expectations? Because that's what I try and sort of help people with as well.
Yeah, realistic expectations are the best place to start. Start really small. Like don't go into this all or nothing mentality where you have to do everything or it's not worth it. I think that's part of that is the mindset and just being okay with the fact that hey, you're not gonna lose 20 pounds in a month or it just getting wrapping your head around the fact that hey, if you want this to be sustainable, you need to start really small, make it sustainable, and then build from there. And if you're not sure where to start, asking somebody for help. Like there's a lot of great professionals out there from a nutrition standpoint, from a rehab standpoint, even just working out. And there's a lot of great resources online as well. Like don't be afraid to ask for help for, a qualified professional that's done it before and start super small. Those would be the two things that I'd recommend.
Nice. And in terms of sort of like the post recovery as well, in terms of when clients do start with you and they are getting that like I feel sore and things like that, what is something that either you do for yourself or that you recommend to clients to do to kind of like ease that pain and discomfort? Maybe like you said, because other people may be popping Tylenol all the time and getting into really bad habits and stuff. Like what is something sort of after a way either to nourish themselves or to help themselves sort of like gently with that rehabilitation?
So from the beginning, like the more movement you can do afterwards, the better. It acts as a sort of active recovery. So a lot of times, if you do like a really heavy leg workout, for example, and then you sit all day, the rest of the day, and sit more the next day too, you're probably going to be more sore than if you kept moving. So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you have to continue doing another workout, but even just walking, taking the stairs every once in a while, keeping circulation to those muscles, keeping blood flow to the area actually aids your recovery a lot better. And from a nutritional and recovery standpoint, getting a good amount of sleep will help you recover better and
Mhm.
not feel so sore. And getting enough calories and protein, especially, is huge for that as well. So those are the big three: move a lot, keep some circulation to the area, get enough sleep, get enough protein.
That's great. I love that it's contradicting at the first one because most people you think when they're sore, they're like, I need to sit down, and you think
Yep.
that most people and it's true, like you end up becoming stiffer and in more pain. But if you think about it, the moving around this more of a circulatory, thing where basically the blood is moving around and it's helping the muscles. So I love that about recovery because like you said, you don't need to sort of go and do some strenuous exercise. So that's a great tip. I love that. So where can clients find Stephen?
Two main places they can find me, either at strumosfitness.com, which is my website, and I'm most active on Instagram in terms of social media at Coach Strumos. That's where most of my free content and tips, and it's an easy way to reach me either way.
Perfect. So I'll put that in the show notes for everybody so they can access your website. And I'd love for you guys to leave us a review as well. So thank you for coming on, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Bethany. I appreciate it.
Awesome.